So we got stuff to go through, so I'm just gonna get into it. So I'm old. Do people even know this movie? Like I'm like worried. Okay, good. Good, good, good. So you may remember that the main character doesn't like AI. And that's actually like cards on the table, that's kind of me. Like I don't really like it. And um this was like kind of my attitude towards agents. Like I think people recognize this meme. Like I was like, I just with like I'm pretty good with like Vim and IntelliJ. I'm pretty happy. I don't need to like mess around with these agents. And I played around with them early on, but and this was kind of my impression. Then Cursor came along, and James, another RC alum, was like, "You should really try out Cursor," and it was very good. And so then this was me for a while. Like, oh my God, like the tab autocomplete in Vim and Cursor, it's good. Like I don't really need to look at agents. And so then I came up with the original title for this talk, which is like, if I'm using Vim and Cursor autocomplete, I'm probably going to be faster than agents. And so I'll share like some of the like the keyboard shortcuts and kind of workflows that help me move really quickly. Um, and so I sent that title to you guys, and then I was like, let me make sure that like this isn't true, because I am old. And so like let me make sure that I'm not making a mistake here. And so another thing that James said was like, you should try out Claude Code. And I was like, okay. And so I raced Claude Code for like a week. I don't know, over like 10 or 15 tickets. I just was like, trying to beat Claude Code, and it beat me a few times. And I was like, okay, this is wrong. This is pretty good. And so now, like in the movie, Will Smith and the AI, they become friends, right? And so that's like a little bit closer to where I'm at. Um, Now, one way of reacting to the progress that these agents is making. I'm so sorry, this is not the title for the talk, but we're still going to talk about these workflows, but it's like framed a little bit differently. So one way of reacting to the progress that these agents and AI is making is like, you might say something like Kent Beck says. So I'm just going to quickly read this. He's like, ChatGPT came out. He says 90% of my skills just went to $0, and 10% of my skills just went up 1,000x. And this is exactly what I'm talking about: having a vision, being able to set milestones towards that vision, keeping track of design, etc. These are hugely leveraged skills now compared to knowing where the ampersands and the stars and the brackets and rust are. I think this is wrong. Like Kent Beck is great. Obviously like a legend, OG, Agile Manifesto, signatory, popularized CDD, unit testing. But I don't think this is quite right. I do think that if you took Kent Beck's view seriously, you might ask like, does learning these workflows even matter? Like this is like learning the Vim key bindings and the shortcuts and the workflows. It feels more like the ampersand Rust style things that Kent Beck is kind of poo-pooing on. But I do think this is wrong. Why? I think that AI is kind of like the Hulk. So very powerful, but also kind of finicky. So like you may remember this scene. I think it was like one of the Infinity Wars movies where he's like trying to transform into the Hulk, but he can't. And Tony Stark's there, like, hey, you're embarrassing me. Like, we're trying to fight a bad guy, and you're like having a hard time. That's like kind of what these agents are like. And I think our job is to be kind of like the Natasha Romanoff in the relationship. So like you have this really powerful but finicky thing, but it needs to be managed because either it'll like ruin things or just not do what you would like. And so we are the Black Widow in the relationship here. And so it does matter to learn these things. So let's talk about them. Um, when you're using autocomplete, I meant to start a timer so that I could check a time. When you're using autocomplete or using AI, I think mind meld is like a pretty good metaphor. So like the cursor is trying to figure out what you're trying to do while you're working in your file. So this is if you're not using chat, if you're just like navigating your file, your file system, looking at different files in the editor and making your edits. So you could think of the autocomplete as trying to intuit your intention. And when you pick up the mouse, or like if you get lost inside your code base, you're not able to navigate efficiently. This is Stitch says I'm lost here, by the way, if I'm old again. Like I'm lost. So if you're lost like Stitch, or like you're inefficient in how you navigate around the code base, that actually makes it very difficult for the autocomplete or the AI to like understand what you're doing, right? So cursor's like, what is this programmer's intention? And so I think like if you were to plot autocomplete quality as a function of the number of detours, it would look something like this. Like if you're not able to efficiently get from one file to another while you're editing, it's harder for the autocomplete to kind of understand your intention or intuit your intention, and so then the autocomplete quality is going to be worse. And so the first set of things that I want to quickly show are just like quick, shortcuts for moving around that in my experience improve the tab autocomplete quality. So, oh man, I was expecting to have a second display. Let's see how this goes. Oh, this is full screen. Let's do it this way. Let's close this. Okay, so you're just going to see my list of things, but like, okay, so one thing that's kind of neat. This is a hotkey that not a lot of folks know about. Is if you, and I'll actually do this I'll do this in Go. So if you break code, a lot of times when you're using autocomplete or agents, you're spending a lot of time when the code's in a broken state. If you press Alt F8, oh sorry, hold on, let me get the that didn't work. Why is that not working? Give me one second. Let me get Keycaster going. It says it's going. Stop casting. Start. Why is that not showing up? Give me 1 second. Is it? There it is. Okay, great. So let's do this here. Okay, great. So if you press Option F8, and it's whatever, if you're on Windows, it's going to be different, but the important thing is just knowing that this exists. This will jump your cursor to the next compiler error within the file. And this is really useful. Like, so the tab autocomplete in cursor tries to do this. It tries to like figure out where you want to go next. And oftentimes it's wrong. And so you can like, whatever, you can kind of search around the file for a mistake. You can try and rely on the tab the tab to jump your cursor to the next correct location. Or if you know, I want to go to the next error in the file, you can just type Alt F8, and then oftentimes the autocomplete kind of picks up on what you're trying to do. Oh, you're trying to fix this error, and it will do kind of what you expect. And so that's a neat thing. Another kind of useful jumping around shortcut is Alt F5. So this uses version control to jump to the next place in the file where you have made a change. And oftentimes that's what you want. So if I get rid of this and I'm at the top of the file, I can jump to the place where I've made a change in that file. And that's really useful, again, because the tab autocomplete doesn't always bring you to the place where you want to make your next edit. And oftentimes, like, oh, I'm in this file. I need to jump to the place where I made an edit, and the tab autocomplete can pick up from there. Another kind of related shortcut that's useful is, oh goodness, it's this. Oh, is it not working because that's interesting. Give me 1 sec. We'll come back to that one. Okay, another one that's I think everyone probably knows, like Command P will jump you to different files. That's really useful. Less well known is Command T, which will it's searching across symbols. And so you can jump not just to files, but to variable declarations, function declarations, class declarations within files. So that's useful. And one thing that's kind of neat about this is that the fuzzy matching is really nice. So you can see here that there's this Mercer API source. If I type MAS, it's right here. It's the fourth option. So I don't even need to type out everything to get to a particular symbol. So that's nice. Hopefully folks know about control minus. This jumps you back to your previous edit location. So a lot of times you'll be making a change and you jump to one file and you need to jump back to where you were editing before. So these are, you can't really call these workflows. These are just straight shortcuts. But I think these are kind of building blocks into like more interesting workflows that are helpful for improving the quality of the autocomplete. Let's keep going. So let me jump back here. Okay, so another, I think, problem when you're working with AI is Yeah, so it's like there's a lot of attention on like prompt engineering, like write a very good prompt. Sometimes you don't know enough information to write a very good prompt. And I actually think that like people have noted this for a long time, like that the nature of software engineering is some of it is just like working out like what you actually want. That's actually the bulk of the work. Um, and so there's this famous essay that I actually first read when I was first at RC a long time ago. It's written a long time ago, but it's still, I think, very relevant. So Fred Brooks says here, the most important function that software builders do for their clients is the iterative extraction of and refinement of the product requirements. But the truth is the clients don't know what they want. And I think you can like slightly modify this. And it's like, yeah, the most important function for like us software builders to perform for the copilots is this iterative extraction of requirements, because the truth is we don't know what we want. We don't have enough information at the outset to write a very good prompt. And so, that's like one thing I want you to hold in your head. The other thing is when you're able to efficiently move around your code base and you're kind of you're exploring to kind of understand what the prompt should be, you can actually kind of quickly add context to the agent while you're doing that, so that they kind of quickly come up to speed with the relevant parts of the code base that need to be changed. So this is with this stupid I know Kung Fu meme, like you're like plugging in a thing into the agent and just doubt that, like this is the relevant stuff. I'm gonna like quickly do that. So let me show you what that looks like. What was the example I wanted to do for this? Oh yeah. So and I can actually do this full screen. So so I'm going to use the symbol search here, and I think that I'm interested in. There's a little banner here at the top. Okay, good. I misspelled. API DSL. So, and I didn't use the trick that I showed you, Ray, where it's like if I do something like this, yeah. So I only typed a few characters and it knows that I want this, API DSL.create form method. We're jumping into Go land here. And let's say I'm looking at this and this is a test DSL method. And so it's used a lot in our test cases. And I see that there's this parameter here that is it's a pointer to a string. A lot of times in Go we use pointers to things to indicate like that it's an optional parameter. And when I'm writing a DSL for testing, optional parameters are like kind of a smell. Like I prefer to have a version of the method that just doesn't take the parameter. And in Go, the optional parameters are a little bit yucky. Like in some languages, if you have an optional parameter, you just don't have to pass anything when you're invoking the method. That's not the case in Go. So it makes using the method a little bit less ergonomic. So it's like, oh, I might want to refactor this. But I don't exactly know how it's used, and I don't exactly know how it should be refactored. And so what I can do is, and this is introducing a few more shortcuts here, but if I know that I want to refactor this, I can jump to the end of the line, and then there's something called syntactically expand selection in Cursor, which is what it sounds like. So it uses its static analysis of the language construct that your cursor is on to understand like how to select increasingly larger portions of the file in a way that's grouped in like these syntactic elements. So in this case, if I'm here and I do syntactic, whoops. Hold on, jump back. Command minus. Oh gosh. What did I do? Okay, whatever. We'll do this. Oh gosh, this is embarrassing. Oh yeah, I misspelled it. There it is. Okay, so and I might so I'll jump here. No, I'll do this. Expand. So here it is. So if I do this, you can see that it's expanding to the not just the method name, but also the parameters that are passed in. And if I do it again, it'll expand to the entire function body. And then I can add this to the chat through Command L. So I'm starting to like kind of iteratively build up the context that's useful for the agent. This is a background agent that I need to me create a new chat. But you can see that it's starting to add this, and then I can do something like, so this is oh, why didn't that? Oh, I'm sorry, Keycaster didn't show this, but there's a shortcut for showing all of the references for a method. And so it's Alt Shift F4 if you're interested, or F12 if you're interested. But so this will show me a list of all the places where this is used, and then I can do F4 to jump between all of the references really quickly, and Shift F4 to jump back. And any interesting invocation points, I can very easily jump into the active editor and then add that to the context of the chat agent. So you might have missed it, but I did Command A to focus the active editor, and then Command L to add my current selection into the agent's context. So this is kind of what I was talking about, where you can kind of quickly add context into the agent's context window as you're jumping around, and kind of refine what you want your prompt to be based on the usages of the method that you want to refactor. And of course, you can apply this to other situations. I think the important thing is just being able to like move around quickly and kind of selectively add context, and then figure out kind of what you want your prompt to be. Okay, how am I doing on time? I think I'm okay. Maybe I have 3 minutes. I'm gonna keep going. That's a little hand wavy, but I'm happy to talk more. Okay, so I mean, the other thing I think that makes working with these agents kind of like working with a Hulk, or like a kind of a finicky, powerful thing, is of course they have bad memory. And like, has anybody used Claude Code? Okay, yeah. So I think like I overheard Rashad talking about, Rashad is another colleague of mine at Avantos. He just joined, actually, he walked in late. But I heard Rashad talking about how as soon as Claude Code was compacting, it was like, it was a bummer. Like, do people know what I mean by compacting? Like there's, okay, yeah, so these models have a limited context window. And so when you reach the limit of that context window, what they try and do is take the important elements of the conversation and kind of like compress them or distill them down, and then carry them over into a new context window. But it's a lossy compression. And so a lot of times the agents start doing really weird things. And and this is why they, it seems like they kind of have bad memory. And I think this has implications for like how we're working with them, in that we should actually lean on already existing static analysis based refactoring tools when we can, because then we're not burning through tokens in the context window and forcing the compacting event to happen, or the weird like Dory memory problems. So things like this in this example, it's like extracting a type alias or extracting an interface. These things we should just use the editor tools for, and not rely on AI for. I think it helps improve the performance. It's also, so yeah, there's like, you can draw a similar graph here where it's like, if you're burning a lot of tokens on trivial refactors that you can do just through static analysis, you're going to have worse agent autocomplete quality. It's also, I think, so I was making fun of myself a little bit, like that I've kind of stepped away from this perspective, but I do think that this like Omni-Man vibe is like correct, where like if you're using AI for things that you can very trivially do with Vim or like IntelliJ or whatever your editor's refactoring shortcuts are, it's a little silly, and it just takes way longer than to just kind of like quickly do things in your editor. I actually want to quickly show that. I know like IntelliJ is for old people like me, like people don't like IntelliJ, but like it's insane the stuff that you can do if you know how to move around. So let's go to like this, you know what? So funny story. Hold on, I need to open a different project. I created a different folder that I just use for agents, and this project is pointing to an old folder, so that's why it's not working. We don't have time for this. I'll show some things in Cursor that are not as impressive, but just want to show how you can use static analysis. Actually, sorry, let me check something here. Oh yeah, okay. I think you kind of get the point. More short on time. Like there are like, you should look for things like I will quickly show one thing. So if you're, let's say you're, let's see. So this could be interesting. So if I select this and I type command period, this is like the option. This is the hotkey and cursor for getting a lot of the built-in kind of static analysis based refactoring things. So I can extract this as a function or as a method, and it's just faster and you don't burn through the tokens. So that's all I will say about that. And then I want to show one workflow that that's kind of I think enabled by using some of the static analysis based refactoring and also some of the other shortcuts that I showed around navigating around the code base. And it's a way of programming that I like to think of. Do people know what this movie is? What this is from? This is Yes, good. Yeah, this is D&D. So there's a wizard character in the D&D film, and he, in like a crucial moment in the beginning of the film, casts a spell, but it doesn't work, and all the characters are harmed or whatever because of it. And I think there's like a way of working with cursor and like some of these other kind of shortcuts where you make a broken invocation, you cast a spell that doesn't work in the code. You kind of like program by wishful thinking. You're like, I'm going to invoke this method that doesn't exist, or call this function that doesn't exist, or whatever. And you get an error, obviously, but you can that can be like an interesting starting point for jumping around and getting autocomplete to like kind of fill in the implementation details. So that's the last thing I want to quickly show, if I have time. Is it okay if I do this? Okay, quick time check. So so yeah, I wanted to show this here. So let's say that I wanted to implement a new route. What I can do is, so there's some boilerplate here. And I'm letting cursor autocomplete that, and I'm going to need a new handler. Oh, actually, no, this isn't an example I wanted. I'm sorry. Let's go back here. Yeah, let's go here. So, and I'll do like a shorter version of this. So let's say that I wanted a new DSL method, like test DSL method. So I could, inside of a test, I can start to write whatever the method name is. So I can say new method, and maybe even give it like some parameters to keep it kind of interesting. So a string and a number. And then here what I can do, actually, maybe we should give it a better name, like get forms or something like that. So, and what we're doing here is we're giving the autocomplete or the AI like a clue of what the implementation should be. And so then I can do command period. And one of the like static analysis based refactoring options here is to just declare the missing method. So I'm not using AI here. So if I press enter, the method will be declared. This error will go away. I use Vim key binding, so I can do GD to jump to the declaration of the thing that I just like I made the broken invocation, and then I leaned on the static analysis to create a step implementation, and I jumped to it. If you don't like Vim key bindings, you can use Command F12, I think, or just F12. And then now you can see that cursor is trying to fill in the implementation. And so that's like, this is actually like, yeah, roughly what I want. So this is pretty good. Oh wait, what? Sorry, what did it do? See, it's finicky. There we go, that looks better. But you can, yeah, so this, you can kind of see how bouncing back and forth between like the older school static analysis based refactoring and the cursor autocomplete and shortcuts for kind of navigating around the code base can come together to make it really fast, even if you're not always going to be agents. So I'll stop there, and thanks for your time.
All right, we have time for just a few questions. If anyone either on Zoom, you can pop it into the chat, or in person, you can raise your hand. And Matt, if you could just repeat the question that you get, and then people in the recording and on Zoom can hear it.
Okay.
Great.
Sure. Yeah.
So I haven't used Cursor, and so I just want to ask a clarification question. You talked about like even if you're not like putting stuff into the context window, like I think you said Command L or something, like you can put this into the window. Just the way you navigate itself is being picked up through your files. It's being picked up, and they're trying to refer. So any movement you do is like we interpreted that as the intelligent movement. So it's just picking up something.
Yeah. So I think the question is like, even if you're not explicitly adding context to the agent or whatever, the Copilot, it's still being added via your movements around the code base. And yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question, or I have a question.
Sure.
So, so in a lot of coding benchmarks,
Yeah.
Or benchmarks in general, the models prompt with a lot of examples, like few short examples, and then, given the task, do this, do that. So my question is, did you experiment with what you had in context and how that impacted the quality of your downstream task?
Yeah, so the question is, have I experimented with doing like few shot examples when yes, I have. And I think that's actually a part of the motivation for like, I mentioned in some cases you don't exactly know what the prompt is, or you don't exactly know what the prompt is. Or maybe you want to like kind of add a bunch of context into the window for the agent. And I think that's actually a good opportunity to do like the few shot examples where if you're jumping around the code base and you're, doing like syntactically expand selection, and then you like do Command L to like ship it into the context window, that's kind of how I see you a very quick way of doing like few shot examples where it's like in that example that I was doing where I wanted to refactor a DSL method to get rid of the optional parameter, I can jump to a few invocations of that. Maybe I don't do all of them and put that into the context window to give it kind of a sense of like, here's where you need to make the changes. Yeah, does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
My second question was, you have some graphs in your slide deck.
Very scientific graphs, almost as good as the ones that were used for the GPT-5 launch. Yeah.
So my question was like, how do you measure like the quality of the code you're generating? And when, or is it like, do you have intermediary steps, or is it like passive unit tests, or?
Oh yeah. So the question is, how do I measure the quality without a complete? And it's like there's an XKCD comic. It's like number of W2Fs or whatever, right? Like it's or a number of times that I'm like, no, I don't want that. Or like you have the wrong idea. So yeah, it's a BS graph. But it's just my like anecdotally or like when I'm more efficient with how I move around the code base, I'm getting better autocomplete results. Yeah. Sure.
You mentioned also playing around with Claude Code. I'm
Yes.
curious how your experiences have mapped from like an ID-based like Windsurf or Cursor versus Claude Code because it's more CLI. Do you feel like you have some loss of control over there? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the question is like, have I played around with Claude Code? Do I feel like I'm losing control? Or like, how does it feel kind of different from being in Cursor? I'm early in my Claude Code journey. I thankfully work with colleagues who have, pulled me in that direction, even though I was like the Will Smith, like I don't like AI. So there's probably a better person to ask this question to, but here we are. I will tell you that, it does feel like I have less control. Apparently there's a way that you can steer the AI while it's working. You might have noticed this. I've not actually tried that. Do you have good experience with that, Tristan?
It's not as good as like actually outright canceling a request.
Okay.
Saying like, hey, here's some additional context for saying what you left.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can like point it around while it's doing the request.
Okay, Tristan said that trying to steer the agent while it's working is not as good as just canceling and starting over and like giving additional.
It's like that.
Also, not constantly confirm you can iterative feedback that as well. But yeah, you won't like jump around PID like.
Yeah, so the one thing I'll add to that is like when I'm using Claude Code or even like Cursor agents. So we actually just set up the Slack integration where you can just say like at Cursor in Slack, like somebody's complaining about something in Slack, like a PM or something, you're just like at Cursor, fix this. And I think both in that case and in the Claude Code case, I think of it as a very hands-off thing, for better or worse. That may not be correct, but basically it's like, yeah, just do your thing. And then when you're done, I'm going to jump in and like do my, the workflows that I kind of showed you where I'm like jumping around the code base and like trying to get a sense of what's wrong. And actually the hotkeys that I showed around like jumping to files, jumping through files that have code changes through version, like that are detected through version control. That's very useful when you're dropping into a PR that an agent has already started but has messed up, which is very common, and you know, getting a sense of like what needs to be edited. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. Oh, one more question. Or not? Oh, great.
So I guess my question is like forgive me if I misunderstood, but I think one thing you said in the presentation is that the agents work better the more like you are clear about what you're trying to get him to do. So
Yes.
you know, if you like get a whole like POD in there, maybe like it would be like know exactly what it's supposed to do. You just say like, oh, implement X, maybe it'll go right. So I guess my question is like if you have any techniques for like getting the AI to ask you the things it needs to make the I guess the definition of the task more complete.
Yeah, the question is, do I have any techniques for getting the AI to ask her what it needs? No. Sorry. I think like, and I also like, I think I find the advice to kind of exhaustively specify the requirements for a thing, but like, you know, really flesh out your prompt. I find that very difficult to do because of the Fred Brooks quote, right? About like, you don't necessarily know what you want. And I think that yeah, I just prefer to kind of look at the code and build things up iteratively. I think another thing that I'll say is when you're reviewing the output of the LLM, if you have not spent the time to like understand the surrounding code, because when you look at a diff, you're only looking at a window of the code that's changed. You don't have the broader context. And so I find that it's very difficult to review the changes. It's slow. And so I think those two headwinds of like, it can be difficult to understand what the requirements are a priori are from the armchair, and it's difficult to review the changes because you don't have the broader context. I think that often makes you slower if you're trying to like take that approach. And actually there was an article in Hacker News a couple weeks back from the Model Evaluation Threat Research Group that showed that that developers tend to overestimate the efficacy of agents. So they tend to think that if they're using an agent, they're going faster than they actually are. And I think that there might be something there, that a part of the reason that that's the case is that these two things that I mentioned, that it's difficult to gather the requirements up front, and that it's very difficult to review these things if you don't have the broader context. Rashad would say that like that study was using older tools, and so maybe it doesn't apply anymore. My like rejoinder to that would be, I think the inflated expectations that developers have about the tools is independent, I think, of the quality of the tool itself. So I think there's something weird going on here, like maybe an endowed progress effect or something like that. We can talk about more after. There's something weird going on. I think we overestimate the efficacy of these things. So that's it.